guys, and welcome back to my channel. I'm known as King the Bookworm, and in today's video, I'm doing another Arthur interview. I found this young lady on TikTok. She was promoting, I believe it was Sticks and Stones. I think that's what it was. I think one of your TikToks was promoting Sticks and Stones. And I was like, never heard of this lady. Let me see. She writes romance. She writes YA and NA, something that I do as well. So I was like, So we connected on TikTok. This interview should have happened since like months ago, but we both had busy lives. Things happen. So I'm happy I have her here with me. I read her book, Sticks and Stones, which is, look at the cover for a second. It's freaking gorgeous. Love it. I read it in one sitting. So, and I cried and I DM'd her while I read the book. So you guys know when I do that, you know I love the book. And I have with me Miss Santana Blair. So how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. So the first two questions I ask every author that I interview: what made you want to write and how did you start writing?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. I don't even know if I ever had something that said, oh, I want to. It's just something I always did. I felt like I was always telling stories, even if it wasn't on paper. Like, back to like when we played with Barbies with my friends, I was the one that I needed backstories. I wanted legacies. I wanted, who's ex, who's boyfriend, who's cousin, mother.
Yeah.
So I was always creating stories in my head. Always, always, always. I was always a reader. I started reading at an early age. I felt like it was just in me. But I want to say when I put the actual career behind it, maybe was more in high school. Okay. I started writing, and when I say writing, I mean like in notebooks with pen and paper, not on a computer. I still have those notebooks full of stories. Some of those stories are like some of the ones that are one of my first books that I put out. I actually wrote them in high school.
Wow.
So it just became something I found myself saying, oh, I wanted to be like an English teacher or this or that. But it was really, no, you want to write, you want to tell stories, you want to, when I was always a reader, and I'm sure maybe you'll relate, we read a lot of books, but sometimes you can't find those characters that you connect with. You don't see your friends, you don't see yourself in them. So eventually it's, you know what, I'm going to write the story that I want to read. I want to write the story that other girls like me wanted to read at this age, or, and put that out there.
Okay, cool. So Sticks and Stones, guys, this is the perfect YA book in my opinion. I loved everything about it. Doing my research, looking at the reviews, I found out it's a retelling of Pride and Prejudice. I've never read the book. I've never had to read the book in school, so I really didn't know what Pride and Prejudice was until I did my own research about it. So it tells the story of Darcy and Eli. Eli is from the wrong side of the tracks, but kind of like in the poor neighborhood, lower income class. Darcy is very high income. Granted, she was from where Eli's from, but her mom got a husband now that adopted her and go from there. And Eli and his brother Noah, they go to a prestigious school called Pembroke Academy. And you get to see how at first Noah and Darcy's best friend kind of just like love at first sight. As far as Eli and Darcy, it's kind of like an enemies to lovers type story, which I thought was super cute. I honestly love enemies to lovers or friends to lovers in a YA. I don't know why I do, I just do. And you get to see them how one slip up can change a life for everybody, and just not on one side, but on both sides. I had a lot of things to say when we talked. But what made you want to write Sticks and Stones?
Well, I did read and watch the adaptations of Pride and Prejudice. I feel like it's a book that, like yourself, maybe not everybody reads. Maybe some people don't have a desire to read it because of the genre, or they feel like it's set in a time period that they can't really connect to. But I feel like a lot of those stories, they have timeless elements to them. So I said, you know what, let's bring it up to date. Let's you know, it's a gender bent. So Darcy is a female in my book versus a male, and Eli is no longer Elizabeth, it's Elijah. And then just taking those characters and swirling and mixing it with things that we deal with now, things that I feel like are human nature, judging sometimes. And whether or not we all want to admit it, we all do judge sometimes on first appearances, first impressions, sometimes last longer than we would like them to,
Yeah.
you know. And so it was just, it popped in my head. And honestly, with Sticks and Stones, I saw a vision of the cover before I saw anything else. Like I didn't even kind of know the story. I kind of just felt like I wanted something graffiti and city, and just I saw it, and then it just started to slowly come together like little bricks. And yeah, so
let's dive in. So I think I'm gonna have to pull up some of my messages because these were a lot, guys. I'm trying to tell y'all, it was a lot. Let's see if I can pull them up real quick. So I think the first message I said was the way that Elijah talked to Darcy. That scene was hilarious. I think when they first met, if I'm not mistaken,
whenever she's spiraling.
Yes, he was spiraling out of freaking control. Which at the time I did not like Darcy, but like understanding why she was the way that she was, because she felt that she had, spoiler alert if you haven't read the book, but she felt as if she had to put up this persona because of who her stepfather was and where she came from, and she didn't want to be the outsider. Because if you really think about it, Darcy was Elijah when she first came to Pembroke. So yeah.
Yeah, and even in that token, I felt like I really wanted to touch on mental health, you know, her having anxiety and dealing with anxiety, and that sometimes what we might be so quick to judge or write somebody off as is them dealing with something going on inside of them. But yeah, and I felt like, I mean, you know, in the original Pride and Prejudice, that's the issue with the characters, right? One has too much pride and the other has too much prejudice or judgmental. And you see how that interferes with their relationships between their families, between themselves, between their friends. So Eli, not knowing anything about Darcy and just meeting her in this snap moment of her spiraling, made that judgment of, this is who she is. This girl is too much. And even though I think I made it pretty clear, he has that physical, she's cute. He likes what he sees, but she's a lot, you know? So, and then being able to unlayer it, you know, take it apart and see, okay, what's going on with her? And even so much with Eli too. She had her judgments on him, you know, on why are you here? What are you here for? And those kind of hard conversations.
Yeah, because she even tells Charlie, which is her best friend, that like, okay, he seems cool, but his brother, I don't see the hype in it. And a lot of girls was like, oh, he's cute. Like, did you see the new boys? They're cute. This and that. She was like, okay, yeah, he's cute, but he's still an asshole. Like, she says that to Charlie. She says she does not like them. Like, they're like, oh,
she makes it very, very, very clear that there's the connection between, you know, the friend and the brother. You have that, and very much so in the original book, you have Mr. Billings, Charlie, and then you have Jane, who is in my book played by Jonah. So you have that, okay, now they're going to be thrown together in this situation where if you ever had to be a third wheel and you don't want to be in that situation, you know, and get to play on that. But yeah, she very much was vocal. And I love that about her.
But I think the only thing I had with Darcy was the Liam situation. I feel as if she should have told Elijah what happened instead of not saying anything to him, but saying something to her mom. And granted, moms talk, whether you want to believe it or not. Do I think the mom was in the wrong? Yes, I do. Because that is something that she confided in her daughter in, especially in the beginning when you see them at the dinner table, and every time Darcy's mom would ask a question, Darcy was like, it's okay. It was cool. She didn't talk. So the fact that she actually confide into her mom and her mom to betray her trust like that, and then instead of telling Eli that way, it just I was like, oh.
Well, I'll play devil's advocate and defend Regina a little bit, because hopefully people pick up on it. in her mom defense, I guess I would say, it wasn't an outright, even though Darcy gets on her for her chitter chatter gossip circle with her friends, in this case it wasn't necessarily her gossiping, more of her defending these boys and saying that Eli and Jonah could be a certain way, but they're not. And you're not going to judge them off of, the stereotype of the boys that typically or may have come from that situation, like Liam, Yeah. But yes, I feel like it was a hard thing to put in, because obviously we want to write the perfect, but none of us, I'm sure we could all look back and think like, man, why did I say that? Or why didn't I do that? And they're teenagers. And, you look back and say, why didn't you take the easy way? You made it harder for yourself. But yeah. And that also goes in with, having it be an adaptation.
Yeah.
And trying to take some of the original and make it my way. That's very much something that happens in an original book that I felt was important to carry over, because it is a turning point for both characters where even though Darcy didn't say something to Eli about Liam, I don't want to do a spoiler, eventually it's Darcy who also makes things right and sets things in motion to help things regulate themselves in the end. So if it wasn't for her, he might be in a very bad situation and their family would still be in turmoil, So
I agree. But Eli did not think that way. Eli was like, why are you here? We are not a charity case. Leave our family alone.
Right. But then that's also him knee-jerk. I think we would all react that way about our family. But then hindsight 2020, would you want your family there? You want your family here? Sometimes we do what we got to do to make sure our people are good. So
I agree.
But yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the beauty of writing YA. You can delve into somewhat the immaturity of emotions and get to play around with them a bit, because they're not 30 and 40 years old. They're 16, 17, 18, and they're dealing with a lot of real emotions at a really big points in their life where they're making these big life decisions. College, not college, first love, first heartbreak, a lot of stupid decisions happen, stupid things get said sometimes. So it's fun to write that, but I still try to, not be too stupid.
I got you. So part 2 is coming. Anything you want to say? Because I try to get a little bit out of you. You just gave me.
Are we gonna make a announcement? I think, yeah, I guess we can. The second book is All Fall Down, and it's definitely about little brother Liam. He needs some redemption, right?
Yes.
I feel like I've gotten so many messages on Liam, and I feel like everybody knows it's in him that there's a deeper story, and I'm actually really, really excited about his story.
My opinion, I feel as if he was a little jealous. That's what I feel. That's what I felt like. Because I felt like he had his brothers, and then when Jonah and Eli went to the new school, he didn't have anybody. He felt as he was alone, so he did go on the bad side. And as much as
some jealousy, some abandonment,
that's what I
all
feel.
that mixed in there.
He's a little jealous. So when he goes to Pembroke, everybody's probably already going to count him off because of who he was and all his past. And it sucks when you go to a new school, you don't know nobody, but yet everybody's in your business. You know what I'm saying? So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I'm excited too. It's fun. I'm still in the throes of writing it, but there's some sneaky little bombshells I get to sprinkle in there that will carry over from the first book. We'll see
Okay.
Darcy again.
Okay.
We'll see Eli again. So we'll have some visits, people coming home from college. So we get to see the old favorites.
That's good. Are we, I know it's probably out of Richter, but one day, are we going to get a story on Charlie and Jonah? Because I was so upset that how it end, like how their story ended, because it felt personal to me, because I have a cousin, even though him and his girlfriend aren't in that relationship anymore, but I have a cousin who went through the same thing Jonah did, dating somebody who parents didn't approve of him.
Yeah.
So that I feel like a lot of,
yeah, I get that. I feel like that too. I feel like I want them to have some kind of closure or some kind of continuance where she, maybe now that she's not in her parents' household under their thumb, maybe something. But I don't know. I feel like because it's a YA series and now they're in college, maybe I'll offer something for like newsletter subscribers where I can throw in a short story of something that happens behind, because you know, Sticks and Stones, we see Jonah and we see Charlie, but it's not about them. Yeah. You know? So I'm thinking maybe I can write something that happens simultaneously to Sticks and Stones. So while Eli and Darcy are off doing something, maybe we see something happening with Jonah and Charlie that we didn't get to see on paper, you know?
That'd be cool.
But I see that. It's just hard because, like I said, because it's a YA series, I don't want it to bleed out of the age range. And now that they're out of the age range, it's, you know, but I feel like because we will revisit characters, you at least get to see them and have some conversation maybe about where their status is, what's happened, or, you know, I'm big on all my books really are very much like this. Like I feel like all my characters exist in my head all at the same time. So even if they're set in different genres or different parts of the country, they're all coexisting. So if I write an athlete in one of my other series, it wouldn't be impossible in my mind for in my YA series them to be watching that character play a game on TV because in my head they're all, you know, nothing's separate. So it's never, I say never say never. You never know what pops up.
I'm the same way with my writing because I'm rewriting my first YA novel, and I got it to where one of the male character's brother, he's a football player, and even though he won't like, even though the football player itself won't have his own story, he's in my other stories as well as his girlfriend. So all of them are going to be interconnected. Like the next story I write is football story. The female main character, she is related to the female main character in that book. Yeah. So all of them are kind of interconnected. And I read another book by you that I forgot, your New Year's Eve short.
Oh, with Penelope and
that was super cute.
Thank you. That was I did that as a fun project because it was all part of it was originally part of an anthology, and every story is what happens on New Year's Eve. So that was a fun thing to just, sometimes it's fun to just flush your brain out. And
that was super cute. And I love the way that you had like the time. And I love I love a good enemy, friends, and lovers type situation because, like I said,
that was both.
Yes, it was because Penelope thought that Sebastian was taking away the brother. At the same time, the brother didn't know that Penelope felt that way. And
he was jealous of his brother because he was best friends.
So I was just like, it was messy, but at the same time, it was college level, and it was just so cute. And I was just like, oh, this girl, she's great.
Thank you. Whoa. Thank you.
So I really want to get into it, even though I have the book. You gave me the book. I never got a chance to read it. I want to dive into Paradise Cove because it's like 6 books.
It's series of my heart.
Is it like 6 books?
Currently, let me count. Hold on. There's 5 right now.
Okay.
And there's more coming.
Got it. So let's get into Paradise. Let's start with the first book. And first of all, what made you want to even create Paradise Cove?
So going back to that first question you asked me when we talked about when I started writing and stuff, literally Jason and Brooke it happened. I was at home, I want to say sophomore, junior year, probably junior year, and I was doodling on a piece of paper, just writing. And I ended up leaving that piece of paper on like the computer desk. And it wasn't meant to be anything. I was just writing, probably inspired by my own teen angst at the time. And my mom ended up picking it up and she's just like, oh, what happened to that rest of that story? And I said, what story? What are you talking about? You know, and then she showed me the paper and I'm like, oh, that's one of the story. And that started to click in my head. Like they had no names, no nothing. And then I just started to build it. And then I just created this place where I wanted it to feel like a small town, yet where things were very much close knit. Everybody kind of knows everybody, families. You kind of grow up, have your families, and you either, if you moved away, you move back to raise your family, like that type of a town. And it's easier to write in warm places where you don't have to describe all the winter gear clothes. So I felt like at the time I was young and it just felt like far away from New England where I live, and just this place where, you know, these characters could bloom. But like I said, it started with just the two. And I wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. And eventually then I said, well, I want his brothers and, you know, his family story, and each brother got a story. And then it was usually, at first, it was just about the brothers. Because it's Jason and then he has his 4 brothers. However, whenever I decided to take the leap and actually refine it and publish it, then you start getting like feedback on other characters that you put in. And then I said, well, that wasn't supposed to be a book, but now they need a book too. So that's where 30 Days in Technicolor. So this is the first book. This is Jason and Brooke. And then Brooke's best. Yes. And then, so the main characters are Jason and Brooke, and they both have a best friend, of course. And then in the middle of the book, when they go off to college, because this one kind of spans. I always tell people, if you start reading it and they're like, oh, it's high school. It doesn't stay in high school. It follows them over the course of 3 years. Okay. So you have, by the time they end, they're halfway through college. Things have changed. So you're kind of growing up with them. But I always say this is the matriarch and patriarch of the whole, you know, if it wasn't for Jason and Brooke, there wouldn't be any of the other books, because they're the founding members of this family group, friends that become family. But anyway, Brooke's best friend, Val, she moves to Boston to pursue her documentary filmmaking idea. And that's where this one comes in. And then she has a meet cute with somebody while she's in Boston. And they spend 30 days together in trying to win her over in 30 days. So this one's a novella in the series.
Oh,
that
sounds like a movie.
You know what? I always say, I try to, not that I write with it, but I feel like in my heart, and I don't know if I told you this when we were messaging, I always kind of imagine all of these.
You told me that.
A series or a movie, you know? So in my head, I'm like, yeah, that would be a cute movie. I would love to watch it. Yeah. So, you know, I know some authors they don't ever want to reread what they write. Like once they write it, they're done with it. Not me. Like I will pick up my own book and reread it like I didn't write it. Like I just want to revisit characters. Sometimes I find inspiration in reading what I wrote before, or picking out like, oh wait, that character, that has some meat to it. Let me see if I can dig around and see, and then get a whole new book out of it. But I wouldn't write anything that I didn't enjoy. I wouldn't write anything that I couldn't say, I could see that being a really good movie or a series, because I'm all like, yeah, turn it into a series, please. Call me Netflix. But yeah, and then they go on. So then after 30 Days in Technicolor, so to explain, these are all interconnected. So I always tell people, you can read them individually and you won't feel like, what just happened? But you might get all the little things if you read them in order, because they happen on a timeline. So they won't overlap, but they do pick up where, you know, either right after or a few years after, but you always pick up. So then after 30 Days in Technicolor, you would go to Twice Upon a Time. And that would be Jason from the first book's younger brother. And this is professional athlete coming back home, second chance romance,
My
lots of
favorite trope.
secrets.
My favorite
This one,
trope.
this is like second chance romance times two, because they go through some things and they just have to come together. It's one of those, and friends to romance. I mean, friends to romance, friends to lovers. So they started out as friends, as
Two tropes in
teenagers.
one. Oh, I love it.
Yes. And there might be a secret something or other as well in here. So then you go to After Ever. And After Ever is Max, and Max is Brooks' half brother. He's a sports agent, so then he's also Jaden's sport agent when it comes to basketball. On this one, where he's on a mission to sign this college wide receiver to go professional. He doesn't want to go, so he packs his bags. He heads to the small town in Virginia, determined to find out why he won't sign, determined he's going to change his mind. He stops into a little bookstore for a cup of coffee or for directions, and ends up buying a cup of coffee because he's trying to get to talk to the girl who works at the bookstore, because he's instantly smitten. And you find out she has some secrets of her own. There's some connections that he didn't expect. And this one has a little suspense, I want to say too. A little suspense and intrigue when it comes to her secrets and her life. Not everything's what you expect, you know? And then this is the only one in the series so far. I say this one, you have to at least read one of the previous books, Destination Cove, to really get it. But everybody's coming home in this book. It's for a big homecoming event. So everybody that you've met in the previous books shows up in here. There's family arguments, there's potential breakups, there's engagements, there's all the good stuff that happens at family reunions.
Okay, so I know I need to start with She Called Him Romeo and then work my way down.
Yeah.
I really want to get a good timeline of the whole book.
Because then I feel like you kind of understand characters more too. Like, why is she acting like this in this book? Because maybe in the first book something happened. Or you enjoy, I want to say you enjoy Max and Brooke's relationship in After Ever more when you read Angie Called Him Romeo, because it wasn't like that in the beginning. So when you see them where they are now, it's like, oh, that makes me feel good, you know?
Okay. I got it. So for somebody like me who wants to write books like that, because I have two cities. One is called Jones Hills, which is takes place in all three of my books as of right now. And Close to You, you actually get to understand, and don't like Close to You now, you get to understand a lot more of the city. But Sweet and Sour, you get to see it, the one you see it, and then in the short story that I did with my Christmas analogy, all of them are located in there. So when you have a town like Paradise Cove, do you just think of the town and then you write the locations, or do you just like write locations as you go?
I tend to write as I go. I actually just had this conversation with another author last week when we were kind of doing a writing session, because we are kind of talking about like when groups of authors all write in the same town, and I was like, you have to be very, very precise when you do those things, you know? So for me, it's always kind of writing as I go and then building on it in subsequent books, you know, like I don't map out everything, but I do kind of have an envision in my head, like, well, what neighborhood do they live in? Do they live close to each other where they would be able to walk to each other's house? Or because they're by the ocean, you know, where is that situated at? Would they be able to smell the ocean from their house?
Yeah.
You know, I'm kind of very big on those details, but not necessarily, I need to know every single thing about this town before I start writing it, because I feel like that would also jam me up some, because I'd be so focused on making maps of things and I wouldn't actually be creating the story that goes with it, you know? So I'm more about character mapping. Like I'll write a family tree before I make a map of a town, you know? Because I want to know, okay, how are they related? Who, you know, even when I say family tree, even friend trees, and bosses and coworkers, and who do these people cross paths with more than, and that you can create some kind of overlap. Does this character work at a coffee shop, and is this coffee shop going to show up where all the characters like to get their coffee at, where they can create run-ins and stuff like that. So if it is a place, it tends to be, I treat the place like a character itself, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, like a coffee shop or a library or a boardwalk, where, okay, I need this to actually mean something and not just be, if it's not important to the story, I won't really bother getting into details. If they went to a store to get paper plates, I'm going to say they went to a store to get paper plates. But if I want them to actually maybe have a character later down the line and say they went to such and such a boutique to get this shirt, because maybe later that boutique owner will have some kind of connection to another store. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Because I have two main things: a bakery, now a coffee shop that I run, Sweet and Sour, and a high school. So I kind of want to connect them, and I was just like, people who have successful cities, how the freak do y'all do it? Because I'm like, because when I read I know when I read Paradise Code, but when I read Christina C. Jones, she's big on character building and all that stuff. I feel like I'm there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And everybody who writes reviews, I want to move there and I want to move there. So it's just like, how do y'all guys do it?
I know, and that's the biggest compliment. Like when people tell me, like, I wish I could visit Paradise Cove, or I feel like it's a place I can book a plane ticket, fly out to Southern California, and go visit. And honestly, this is probably insider information, because I don't think I've ever said it. When I first started writing in high school, in my head, it was like an island, like Hawaii or something. But then as I matured, I'm just like, that's really hard, because they can't they would have to get on a plane to do anything outside of that area. So then I had to move it to continental US and say, okay, let's put it Southern California, still warm, still the palm trees, still the water element and things of that nature. But I feel like that's the biggest compliment, because I want that. I want that as a writer. I want people to forget that they're reading eventually, and that the story is just happening inside your head. Like, let me tell you a story, and then it just, you can see it play out.
That makes sense. So,
but just I would say take it what feels natural to you, because like I said, that's how I do it. But like I said, I've seen other authors where they literally have the whole thing mapped out, and then they put out a call and say, oh, we're looking for authors to write in this series. We need a bartender story. We need because they have it all mapped out already. That works for them, but I know for me, I would probably be so hung up on the details that it would take me so long to actually get to the story, and it would feel inorganic. I have to have it feel organic, or else it stunts. I won't write. It becomes a block, because I'm still sitting here working out this detail that doesn't matter. And I guarantee you, half the time the reader won't really care about the detail that you're obsessing about, because it's such a minute thing. So I've learned to just be organic with it, take it as it comes. I think we had a conversation how I'm in between the plotter pantser type of deal. I always have an idea, but I also like to be very organic with it. I let it flesh out how it needs to, or else it's just like I'm writing a script and it's like the character is like, no, that's not. And usually that's because it goes back to the character mapping thing. Like, what did they go through? You have to, like, for me, I have to know them and their personality. And then even when, the reader won't get to that point of them until midway, end of the book. But for a writer, I need to know at the beginning, because I need to know how would somebody in this situation act, So just my piece of advice would be, it's your town. You can, you're the architect. You can build it however you want to, and don't feel the pressure to build it all at one time. Rome wasn't built in a day, take that and let it come with each book and each character and each story. Let those ideas pop up, and let that whole thing just, naturally flow.
Okay, cool. I will take that advice. And that kind of brings me segue to my next question. For somebody who is an aspiring writer and the only personal advice that they got was just start the book, what else advice would you give them?
The aspiring writer, I would say, not just write the book, write the story that you want to tell. Don't write what you think is going to be popular. Don't write what you think is trending on Book Talk or Bookstagram. I feel like for somebody, I don't have millions of followers or whatever, but I will say every one extra follow I get, one extra good review that I get, I can feel the genuineness. I feel like because they're genuinely drawn, they genuinely enjoy my characters. They genuinely enjoy my voice, not my voice masquerading as what's popular to sell more books. And people will tell you, well, that's not good marketing, but I don't. I have to be authentic. And leading into that, my second piece of advice attached to that would be when you move forward, moving forward, when you get those editors and those beta readers, don't just, let me see how to say it without being, build your team with people who you need constructive criticism. You need to tell people that it's not working. However, it has to be balanced with them respecting your voice as an author too. Because there are some editors that might try to change your voice, might try to rewrite things and say, no, that's not what I'm asking for. Help me cut it, clean it, chop it, tell me if it's too long, tell me if it's too empty here, but don't rewrite my voice. Don't change my voice, because it's your name that's going on the book. It's your story. And at the end of the day, those readers are going to look for you, not for your editor, not for your beta readers, but for you. So I would say that those two pieces of advice are going hand in hand. Be authentic and make sure your voice is yours and not, trying to be trendy, because I feel like that's what most people are doing.
I'm gonna catch these gems, because that is very true. Because you do have editors who would say, I don't like this, so I'm gonna change it, and want you to be okay with it. And then when somebody be like, oh, okay, cool, put it out. And I'm telling y'all, if you want to be a writer, please have thick skin, because I'm still learning to have thick skin, because these reviewers are very, very, very harsh.
Yeah.
They are harsh.
Yeah.
They don't care at all. And you must think, well, I took this part out because my editor said so. And then when you put the book out, in that part that you really want out was kind of crucial to the book, they will call you like, you didn't have this part out, so that's why I gave you this star, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, my editor told me to, but then now you said, so yeah, find your people that will actually want you to succeed, but at the same time give you criticism to the point where you be like, I don't want to change it, but I suggest that you do this and that. You don't have to take my advice, but this is what I suggest.
And find the right editor for what you're looking for. So there's character development, and some are really good at saying, we didn't really see any growth here. Or beta readers will say, okay, I'm liking this, but why would he do this? This doesn't feel authentic to his character, da 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 da. And then there's editors who are strictly proofers. I will tell you when your grammar is off, your commas, your punctuation, your tenses are off here. So and just because one is good at the other doesn't mean that they're good, so you have to build your team smart. And I say, and it's a work in progress. I'm so happy that now, and it's taken me a while, that I found an editor that gets it. She enjoys my stories. So even whenever I say, man, like she'll cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha, and at the end she's just like, okay, I'm bawling like a baby. I love this, I love that. And you want both. Tell me both. Tell me, what's working. Because even if I don't change it, at least sometimes you might not change exactly what they're telling you to, but it gives you a direction of, okay, I'm hearing this from a beta reader. I'm hearing this from an editor. I'm hearing this from an author friend who's reading it too. So this is a consistent opinion So what can I do to fix it without changing everything? Because it might be a scene that's important to you, but then they might say it's not, it doesn't feel like it's necessary. Then I can find a way to make it necessary. You know what I mean? So it's a balance and it's a dance. So definitely find your team, find friends, not friends like from real life, like author friends who know writing too. And they don't even have to be a friend. Sometimes find somebody who you aspire to write like, somebody who writes in your genre, and because they have a good grip on that kind of story. So if I'm writing a contemporary sports romance, I'm not going to I'm typically, I won't say never, not going to ask somebody whose specialty or favorite thing to read is fantasy romance, because you might not vibe with what I'm trying to say. We might be great friends. I might like your style. I can enjoy your books, but when it comes to the technicality of writing or the actually building of the story, you might want to find somebody different, you know? So.
And I'm not gonna lie and say finding author friends are easy to find, because there are some snakes in this industry that are very, very crucial. But once you weather out the snakes in the grass, you will find some genuine people.
And you might find the genuine people in people that you didn't expect to find them. So
that's very true too.
Open. You have to be open. Just because we're in the same circle, not everybody wants everybody to win. Unfortunately,
that's true.
There's so many readers, there's enough readers for all of us to win, but not everybody has that mentality. So it's very crucial. I mean, I'm still like that. Like I'll be very, very, I play my hand close to the chest sometimes when I'm talking about ideas. If it's not on paper, ready to publish, then you might not hear about any of my stories. Just like, I'm not trying to, it's bad. I mean, there's so many overlaps. Everybody, I mean, you might think you have a unique idea and there's already 50 books like it, somewhat, some way, shape or form out there. So it's like, I'm not trying to throw my seeds out before I get a chance to, plant it myself.
I'll just say this: when you go in a grocery store, you go to the bread aisle. There's different types of bread, different name brands of bread, just like with books. You go, if you want to go to a football romance story, tons of books that have a football romance story. But that one author might like this book more than the other. And you can't get upset about this person. Why do you like, I like this book because it's such blah 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 blah. Might have the same trope, it might have the same narrative, but it all depends on how that writer writes it that they might love.
Yeah, there's somebody for everybody. And that's what I say, like, even for me, I know my brand already, and I tend to make a lot of TikToks about it, joking, because it's true. And I feel like I always say romance is a spectrum, so you have the ultra sweet, clean Hallmark, gonna be on a Hallmark movie channel, then you have the exact opposite types of romance. And I feel like sometimes readers and even some other romance authors forget there's a whole lot of space in between. So just because I'm not 100% this and I'm definitely not 100% that, it doesn't discount my stories and my books because it's not what you want it to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I know even if it takes me a while to find them, there are readers who like my style of writing. There are readers who like my stories and the way I choose to tell them. So, and I tell myself that on the very hard days where you're like, when you're checking your KDP reports and you're like, what? It's like, you know what? Baby steps. One click means one reader. And if one reader is reading and enjoying it, then I succeeded, Yeah.
Totally agree. Because like for me, for example, when my last book came out, I was scared as hell to write it because it was so different from what from Close to You, my first book, and The One, which is like a very sweet short story. So it's different. So the fact that I was getting so many pages read and people were saying they liked it, I'm like, I must be doing something right, because it's not your typical. Obviously, it was erotica. It's not your typical erotica book. It was just like, it had like kind of like maybe one big sex scene and one little tiny sex scene. And the fact that people
Mhm.
were liking it and wanted more of it, I'm like, geez, I must be doing
Right.
something right, or I must be finding my own type of readers to where, all right, I like your style of writing. I want more of your books.
Right. Yeah. And that's the best feeling ever.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, to this day, I have like 9, 10 books out. I will be sick as a dog every release day, like stressed out, and it never goes away. But I tell you, you get the biggest exhales when you start to get those reassuring. And I will say, I know you said like about the reviews are vicious. They really are, but that's why sometimes if I get the good ones, if I stumble upon a good one, sometimes I will literally, and it might sound vain, but I might save it and print it out and I save them for a folder. And on the days where it feels really hard and you say,
Just,
why am I doing this?
yeah.
It's hard. I can look back and say, this is why I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody heard me, somebody read it, somebody connected. Okay, I got this. Because there's days where someone feel like, I forgot how to write.
Yeah.
How did I do this for? What do you mean? I don't know how to start a new book all over again. What do you mean? So yeah, I would say don't ignore the negative as much as you can, unless it's constructive. Because I
Yes.
say sometimes you don't have to like it, but if your reasons for not liking it are constructive and make me a better writer, then I'll hear it, you know. But I find like sometimes on Goodreads, a lot of the negative, they tend to go in because it's funny.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny to write the negative review, and it's funny to put in the gifs and the, you know, all the elaborate reasons why you hate versus the opposite, you know? So you have to filter some of that out too and say, is this a real negative review, or
Are
is
you just trying to
this
be funny?
you trying to be funny?
I also say
And
this too. Well, let me cut you off. I say this too. If they leave like a 3 or 2 star and they leave no review, don't, like, it is what it is. Like, you read my book
yeah,
regardless of situation.
just
So
keep moving. Yeah, yeah, keep moving, because you, not everybody, just like our personality, not every, you are not for everybody. You are not everybody's favorite person. And as much as it might be a hard truth to swallow, it's the truth.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing when it comes to books. I've read plenty of books that I don't like as a reader. You know, I just have I just operate from the standpoint of, if I don't like it, I don't advertise it. I don't like it. Unless, I would say, for very few exceptions, there's a few books that I'm vocal about, but they're like really, really, really big books that have extremely big fandoms, where it's like, it's kind of common to be on one side or the other of that fandom. But otherwise, like if it's an indie author, if it's a regular author, I just don't find, I don't have that much time in my day to write out all the reasons why I hate something. If I don't like it, I just close the book and move on to the next book.
Yeah.
So, and it's the same thing, you know, once we finish the book, at some point we have to like let that book stay behind us so we can focus on the next book, because if you're so caught up on what everybody thinks about that one, you're never going to get to the next one.
Well, y'all, Santana, she dropping gems tonight. Yes, yes, yes. That's all over across the board. So before we get out of here, besides All Fall Down, is there anything else that you would like to say that you have planned for the rest of the year?
Ooh,
that you can talk about. That you can talk about.
I will be, hopefully, let's cross everything, wrapping up Paradise Cove. There should be, I want to say 2.5, meaning a novella and 2 full-length books that finishes that series. And then I actually wrote a short story for another anthology last year or the year before that. I can't even remember now. I feel like the last 2 years are blurred together in my head. But I wrote a short story called Interception. And it's new characters, however, you have crossover from Paradise Cove. So like a spinoff. And I had so much reception to that story, where people want more, people want more, people want more. So I will say there is definitely more of that series. It's called Interception, and I think the next story, I don't want to say how long it is, because I honestly don't know yet, but there's going to be more of that story come off. And that one is, he's a football player and she's I want to say a mid-size, plus size, Black video game designer, programmer, app developer. And he is like I said, a football player. He's on the team with her brother. In Interception, I'll just do a quick rundown. In Interception, she walks into a party determined to finally get the attention of her longtime crush, Caleb Kennedy, who is the football player that Max was trying to sign in this book.
Got it.
So he's in that book. She's trying to get his eye. She's wearing cute dress, really expensive shoes, you know, the works of the party.
Trying to be seen.
Trying to be seen. She gets pushed into a pool by Caleb's best friend. And then he has to make it up to her. And he promises her he'll help her win his attention. And we know how that goes. So
got it. And I love so like that too.
Yeah, so that was a short story I did for an anthology, and I'll probably re-release it on its own, but right now it's part of the One More Step anthology that's out by Bookworm Box. But
okay.
I'm definitely going into those characters. So a football player series will be coming. I'm not sure if it's going to be a series of novellas or full length yet, but we're definitely going to see a lot more. And you know me, I like to bring the representation. So we're getting lots of cultures, lots of body types, lots of careers, all that. Smart girls and science, techie girls, all of it.
Well, I'm excited. I love football stories. I'm
currently
wrote my first football story that should be out sometime next year because I kind of want to flesh it out still. But that will be taking place in the city of Amethyst Falls, Tennessee, which is kind of like my big football town. It's like it's my big sports town in general. But there are new football team that will be introduced in close to you. So
that's fun. I love writing. I love writing sports, and I like writing. And it'll be a little shady, but I like writing football players that aren't the quarterback.
Yeah, same.
Like
same.
Everybody's the quarterback in other books. So I'm like, no, I want wide receivers. I want tight ends. I want all of it. Give me a kicker story. Anybody write a football?
I don't think nobody's ever wrote a kicker story.
Exactly. Right. So I'm just saying there's a lot of people on football team, but they always end up being the quarterback. So, you know, we got to change it up.
Yes. But Santana, thank you so much for joining me. Guys, I hope you got these gems. Y'all support this indie Black author. Please, 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 please. Get her book Sticks and Stones. Get the guys, start with Paradise Cove, because I was like, even though I have Ever After, I'm sorry. I'm about to start from book 1 and then work my way down so I could be already good to go. But guys, definitely support her. All her socials will be in the links below. Support me. You guys know what it is. Instagram, _bookworm__. TikTok, Sedona Rose Writes _. Follow her on TikTok too, because that's how I found her. She posts a lot of books, a lot of stuff about her books. I think I did see one either on your TikTok, either it was on TikTok or Instagram, where it was like a collage of Sticks and Stones.
Oh yeah, Dreamcast.
That was super cute.
Like, yeah, I love doing those.
Yes, that was super, super cute. So guys, support her, support everything that she has coming up. And until next time, read what you want to write and write what you want to read. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.